So, we have Darren McCann from the Hookbait Company. Your hometown is?
Halifax,
Yorkshire man. Age, it's up to you whether you answer this, Darren. It's not prerequisite. 55. God, you're younger than me. Your PB Tench?
88.
From? Sywell. And your occupation?
Hookbait Company Director.
Fantastic. Right then, so we've got that out of the way. Let's get into the nice stuff now. So let's start at the very beginning then, Darren. Can you tell me how old you were when you first went fishing and got the angling bug?
I was actually very, very late starter. It wasn't until I left school that I started fishing because I didn't have a job to go to. It was the summer holidays and my cousin said, do you fancy coming to Farlow's fishing for tench? Never been fishing before, so I went to the post office, got myself a rod licence. I only got a week one because I didn't know whether I'd like it or not. So we went to Farlow's in his car, and my very first tench was my personal best, £8 on the nose.
Good grief.
Yeah, and that stayed my personal best for 30 years.
All the way up to Sywell?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you came as one of our sponsors and just set up and made it look easy. Brilliant. And so that's kind of leads us on with your angling experience. So who was your biggest angling influence when you look back to those days then?
Rod Hutchinson.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Without doubt, he was the star of the show.
He was the man. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it was Rod Hutchinson that got me into experimenting with the bait. And I must have been about 18 at the time.
Right.
When I started experimenting.
Because back in the day then, really, you couldn't really go and buy, I guess you could buy shop ball baits, but...
The only ones that you could get at the time were Richworth
yeah.
and Duncan Kay
yeah.
and Hutchies.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Nobody else did it.
So that's, like you say, so that's where you got into your baits and experimenting.
Yeah.
I know Phil Jackson asked me this today, actually, bless him. He was saying with bait ingredients that were going about back then, obviously there was quality. I know Hutchie always wrote about quality ingredients.
Yeah.
You still find that today, that probably quality ingredients that you're using back then, say 30, probably 40 years ago, are still those quality ingredients today?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh,
you can't beat quality products.
Yeah. So you've already said about your first capture of your tench. Obviously, it was from Farlow's.
It was, yes.
Yeah, way back when. So you've already answered me that question. You're getting ahead of the game here. So when you caught that tench, did it have a profound impact you and turn you into a specimen hunter, or did you just develop over time?
No. So it was my first fish that I caught. So I knew it was a big fish, and I was very happy about it.
Yeah.
I was still just generally a pleasure angler, but my cousin invited me to keep going back every weekend to Farlow's, and I actually developed a knack of catching tench. And I was going back to 86 when I was fishing at Farlow's, and I was catching 4, 5, 6 tench a day whenever I turned up, and they seemed to be averaging anywhere between 3.5 and 6 pounds.
What bait were you catching them on? Was your own made
Tutti
bait?
Fruities.
Tutti Fruities, yeah. Richworth.
Yeah.
Absolute class.
Yeah, so it was about a year or so later that I started experimenting with baits.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tutti Fruities and Honey Yucatan, they were the going baits.
Yeah, absolute classics. Okay, and so we've just sort of said which tench waters have the influence in size of the tench. You've already answered that question as well. So can you tell us when you joined the Tenchfishers and who maybe prompted you to join?
It was Kenny Parsons that actually said you need to get into the Tenchfishers because they're looking for quality baits, because Kenny uses my bait quite a lot.
Yes, I know he does. Rates it.
So yeah, he obviously had a word, and the next thing I knew, I was invited to join the Tenchfishers, and that was 3 years ago.
God, it seems longer.
I know.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, Horseshoe was my very first session.
Yeah.
And I peered just to see everybody, and that's when they said, well, actually, can you stand in front of everybody and talk to everyone about bait? So I was literally thrown in at the deep end.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I must add, I know I'm into it, like you say, we're having a chat here now, but it goes without saying that the support that you've given to our events, be it Sywell, be it Horseshoe, with prizes, and with supporting the events, it's as Ozzy said today, it's just been absolutely phenomenal and immense. And that probably feels like you've been around a lot longer in the group than you actually have. You've kind of become part of the furniture now. Okay, moving on then. So you've answered that question. If you had to pick one angler who you would fish with, who would you say you most enjoyed fishing with?
Is that somebody that's still around or
anybody? It can be anybody.
I would say my brother.
Yeah.
My brother and I, we fished lots of different venues. He was he still is. He's a very gifted angler, and I learnt from him. He's a lot younger than I am.
I was just going to say, is he older or younger?
Yeah, he's 4 years younger than me.
Yeah.
But he had, and especially with pike, he would catch pike from anywhere in the lake. And I looked up to him, even though he's my little brother. But we had so many good times that I think I'll always cherish him. But
brilliant. Yeah.
If I could carry on fishing with Justin, then I'd be very happy.
More than happy. Yeah, great. And I think
if it comes to like a star status angler, I think Chris Yates.
Oh, you fish with Chris Yates?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm impressed.
Yeah.
He's. I love Chris's writing, and I've never got to meet him, but his video work, his film work, obviously passion for angling goes without saying.
Yeah.
And his writing is just inspirational.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but yeah.
I would say also a second person that I would have loved to fish with. I met with him quite a few times, Terry Lampard.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. I'm a member of the Chubb Study Group as well.
Yeah.
And when they launched their second book, we were all in the pub, did a big launch, and Terry Lampard was there, and he came up to me and he just looked at me and said, "Can you sign my book, please?" And I thought, blimey.
Good grief.
It just felt so brilliant.
Yeah.
But he's best friends with Ian Nairn, who I'm quite friendly with.
Yeah.
So I met with him many times on the bank at Camford on the Dorset Stour.
Yeah.
But I never actually fished with him. Yeah. And it's one of my regrets.
Yeah. I'll bet. I only ever got to meet Terry Lampard once, and that was on my first ever tench fishing, fishers fishing at Horseshoe. And he was across Horseshoe from me, and I'm thinking, oh, good grief, that's Terry Lampard.
Yeah.
And when we'd all packed up, I mean, I didn't catch anything, and we went back, because at the time, I think it still might be the same at Horseshoe now, that you have to take back nets and way slings and mats back to the net shed, and there's Terry Lampard walking up, thinking, oh, dreaded cup winner. Yeah. And I said, how did you get on, Terry? So I blanked, and I thought, oh, good grief, I'm in good company. But and not long after that, he was gone. So so it's lovely that you probably do get to meet some of your heroes. Yeah. And obviously you were originally from that neck of the woods, even though you are living up.
I'm originally from Harlington, right next to Heathrow Airport.
Oh yeah.
I was there. Well, I was born there, and I stayed there till I was 24. Yeah. Then I decided to move my wings, and I moved up to Wales. Stayed there for 6 years. After that, I moved up to Yorkshire, and I've been there for 19 years now.
Ever since. Yeah. Absolutely. So we've already touched on this before. So obviously you're a multi-species angler. Can you tell us what probably your other favourite species are, and probably moving on from that, what your favourite venue would be?
Well, say I started off at Farlow's catching the tench, but I always wanted to catch a carp because I'd seen other people catching them, and I thought these are big fish. Yeah. I didn't catch anything for 3 years of trying.
Grief. Yeah.
I was always catching tench. So when I did start to catch carp, my first one was a 19-pounder, so I was over the moon.
Yeah, it's back in the day. For a big fish.
I got hooked, and I have to admit that for 6 or 7 years, I was just a carp angler from then.
I can admit that sin myself, yeah.
I fished some very, very good waters around the Colne Valley. I also went to Horton after the Longfield netting.
Yeah.
And they were all put in there. I went in there for a day's trial. I don't know if you remember at the time, they opened it up to anybody could fish it on a day ticket.
Yeah.
It was for about 6 months or so. Then they syndicated it.
Yeah.
And 4 years later I managed to get onto that, so I fished Horton proper.
Yeah.
And I caught, on my first season I caught 4 of the originals, 2 commons, one of the Sutton fish that had been transferred, and I was the first one to catch it.
Yeah.
So I got the honour of calling it cranberry.
Yeah.
Because I used caviar and cranberry boilie to catch it.
Yeah.
And then I caught Dumpy.
Great.
And they were all in the same morning.
Just going on to that with Horton, who were the sort of, you probably would have had some of the pretty well-known carp anglers.
Well, yeah, when I
back in
caught
the
all
day.
those fish in the morning, it was back then, this was back in 98.
Yeah.
So it was a lot harder than when it became easier.
Yeah.
I caught those 4 carp in the morning, and first person to come round me was a lad called, well, we called him Ham and Eggs.
Mm-hmm.
And the second person to come round was Tony Parker.
Yeah.
He was one of my best friends. I've known him since I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
And then Pete Springate, and he came round, slapped me on the back, said, "Come round for a cup of tea."
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt part of the family.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Some esteemed company there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Just moving on from there then. How, in your opinion, has specimen tench fishing evolved over the years? You've been fishing for them, and if so, in what way?
Well, for me personally, I didn't target tench for a long time after I took up the carp fishing. As you know, when I caught that big 8-8, that was the first tench I caught for 27 years.
Yeah.
So I've come back into it.
Yeah.
Obviously, things have changed a hell of a lot since I first started fishing it. But all these new rigs that are coming round, and everything that the Tenchfishers are doing, especially with the Hellerman rig, and showing everybody how to tie a proper rig, not a dodgy rig. This is the correct way to do it. All of these things are just beneficial to the welfare of tench.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I suppose, realistically, because I've done some carp fishing the same as you have over the years, and I think the evolution of carp fishing, I think tench fishing has followed, and I for me personally, I always think tench fishing always reaches into the match fishing world and probably takes some of the good ideas, and then it reaches into probably specimen carp and takes some good ideas, especially with helicopter rigs. So I think
it's a recent thing in the last few years that we've taken on what the carp boys are doing rig-wise and starting to incorporate into ours. But I think tench anglers think a little bit more about the safety element of helicopter rigs and things like that, just to make sure that they can't be tethered.
Yes, yeah, definitely so. Just moving on again, what would be your ideal water, like your Nirvana water, and a method for fishing for tench, really?
Sywell.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got everything, isn't it?
Yeah. Preaching to the converted here.
It is, yeah. The first time I saw it, I just fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
It just feels like you're out in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, obviously you've got all the dog walkers and you've got the swimmers and everything, but that's just one tiny little part of the lake. Yeah. The rest of it is yours to do whatever you want to do.
And late at night when the walkers go and early first thing in the morning, it's just got that, it just retains that atmosphere.
Yeah, especially when the mist arrives. It's just absolutely magical.
Yeah.
If only more waters could be like that. I mean, there are, but if more waters could be like that, then it would encourage more people to take up tench fishing.
Yeah. I guess my next question as well, again, that just leads into Sywell, and you've already answered it. It said, could you tell us about the capture of your PB tench? I remember it because you were opposite me at Sywell. Yeah. And, or a special capture that holds a special place in your memory. So
it was that one. It was the first visit to Sywell, and it was the first night. I sat up next to Steve Campbell on the point swim, and it was chock-a-block with weeds, so I spent 3.5 hours raking out until I made a space probably the size, I don't know, a small car. Filled it in with Tinkerberry, lots of pellet, a little bit of ground bait. I didn't know whether there was bream there. Obviously there isn't. There's only one.
Yeah, that's called Gary Ashwell's pet. Yeah.
So I probably put in about half a kilo of chopped boilies, not whole boilies, because I didn't want to overface them. And then I think it was just before 10 o'clock at night, I had an absolute one-toner, and I just didn't expect it on that day, especially being the first day. And to say, it weeded me up a couple of times, and it got very close to, there's a fence that goes in with barbed wire. And it got very close to that side. I just heaved into it. And after that, it came in like a sack. Steve netted it for me, and as soon as he shone the light on it, I just knew it was a PB. It was so perfect. There wasn't a single blemish on the side of it, and it was a proper yellowy olive colour. It's just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I remember it because obviously you'll remember as well. We'd got the WhatsApp group set up that weekend, and obviously that was a weekend when it fished really well. And I know when it pinged up, and it's like, oh, Darren's had one, and we were just like, I was over in yes, it's brilliant because a sidewall fish for me is worth 10 from anywhere else.
Oh,
so I always say it's a
Yeah.
badge of honour. So you got your badge of honour first time
Yeah.
out. So that was respect, and again, that's something that you can sort of say because they may well have seen some of the bait, but that's testament to your bait as well. Absolutely. No, that's good, brilliant. Again, probably either in carp or tench or tackle. I'm just going to ask now, what in your opinion has been the most revolutionary improvement in terms of tackle development over the years?
Rods.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely rods. I mean, when I started, it was the traditional Woolworths specials, fiberglass floppy rods.
Yeah.
When I got more into the fishing, I went on to rods from Abu Garcia. I think I got my very first personalised rods made up. It was Middlesex Angling. I got some Tricast Legends made up, and that was 1990 when I had those made up. They were the best things I'd ever used. Could cast 60, 70, 80 yards without a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I never used to cast right because I was always fishing Farlows. So I'd fish in the pads, so it's like 20, 30 yards fishing.
Yeah, I do.
After that, I joined what's known as Nutty Lane.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
The one with the big fish in it. Well,
Yeah.
I went on and got some Amorphous made up for me by Tony Parker because
Nice, right.
he'd just started Arbitrator Rod Company.
Yeah.
So I got the very, very first pair that he'd made.
Yeah.
He'd made them for himself, and he'd fished on Horton, and he'd actually caught shoulders on these pair of rods.
That's history fishing.
Because I was his first customer,
Yeah.
he gave me his rods, and he just put some new whippings on them in the colour that I wanted.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely cherish those.
Still got them?
No, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When I moved from Wales to Huddersfield, all of my fishing tackle was stolen from the garage,
Oh no.
including all of my dad's gear.
Yes,
And
it's the
my
sentimental.
dad had died previously, so all of the sentimental stuff is just gone, and it was 20 odd years worth of stuff.
Yeah.
But I had those, I had Amorphous, I had Sportex rods,
Yeah.
about 5.5 grand's worth of gear, just
Yeah.
gone in one night.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's heartbreaking. But
It is.
yeah.
I tested those Amorphous to the nth degree when I was fishing on Nutty Lane, because even back then it was a rock hard place.
Yeah.
Quite a few people I knew fished it, and they'd maybe get 1 or 2 bites in a season. Tony Parker was very good. He caught 4 fish one season, and he caught one which he nicknamed Clover because nobody else caught it.
Yeah.
And that was £24. I caught 7 fish the first year that I joined it, and out of those 7 fish, nothing was bigger than £21, but the 21 I had was a half linear, and apparently it was only caught twice after that, and it attained a weight of about £44 years and years after I'd fished it. I'd caught it 21, and I think it came out at 43 or 44 about 20 years later.
Yeah. Real history fish then. Yeah.
Yeah, I caught Daisy at £17. She came out at £49. So all these big fish, I caught them when they were all little, because it was Tony Arbery, Len Arbery's son,
Yes.
stopped them.
All right.
Yeah, he stopped them all. He got this strain in from Germany,
Yeah.
and that was 2 years before I joined it. So I was benefiting from being the first captures.
Yeah. And the good thing, I mean, well, like you say, looking at your numbers there as well, you were, like you say, you were really probably on fire there.
Yeah, I mean, those in the know knew that it was a very good water. I mean, Aaron, Kevin, Clifford used to fish it back in the 70s because it had huge bream tension there.
Yeah.
So he used to go down there with a few. So obviously, Mr. Arbery used to fish down there a lot.
Yeah.
It's steeped in history.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's closed now. It's been turned into a water park.
Good
With
grief.
ski slopes and all sorts of
Yeah. I guess that, again, I always say, if you've got the opportunity to fish waters now, or to do it now, because nothing really lasts forever. You have to take your opportunities when you can, definitely. And I guess all around that sort of those waters there at the time, that was a real hotbed. Of, like you say, you're talking about Tony Arbery and Len Arbery and people like Bob Bateau around there, Rod Hutchinson and you know, Richie McDonald's and that. So you were mixing it with some of the big names in there at the time.
And Rob Maley.
Okay.
Yeah, he was one of my stars as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I liked his books. I liked his wit.
Yeah, definitely. I guess if you know, my next question here, if you had to choose one bait to catch tench, what would be the top of your list and why?
Tinkerberry.
Yeah, I guess. So definitely. And with just going on to, I know we've talked about tench baits, carp baits, but what would you say, without probably giving too much away that's in your bait, ingredients wise, you know, say somebody's making their own bait, or what would you say are good ingredients that make a good tench bait, you know, in your opinion? And you don't have to give too much away.
No, I won't give too much away, but you need to go for things like the highest quality fish meal. The LT versions, low temperature, not much oil in them. I use anchovy extract, I use salmon extract, high quality milk proteins. I don't go for the really expensive lactalbumins because you're talking anywhere between 40 and 60 pounds for half a kilo of it. And all these companies that claim that they're using it in inclusion rates of 20% are lying, because they wouldn't be able to sell the boilies for the rate that they're doing them at.
No.
I mean, to sell a kilo of boilies, you've got to be selling at £35.
Which
it's just not on. So quality milks, you obviously need a binder. So you can use semolina in small quantities and a little bit of cornmeal. You need a binder and a little bit of wheat gluten, but stick to the good quality products. If you can use it, the freshest krill meal, that's always beneficial to any fish that swims. Green lip mussel is a no-brainer. Every fish around loves green lip mussel. Fruit flavours work very, very well with any baits that have got fish or meat proteins in it. When I moved from London to Wales, there weren't many carp lakes, so I started fishing the Upper Severn, and that's when I started to develop my skills and went into chub and barbel fishing. And I experimented, and beyond doubt, anything that had a fruity flavour, barbel would push the chub out of the way to get to it first.
Really?
Yes. It was so clear up there, you could see them just by standing on the banks. If you were behind a tree, you could see the chub feeding, and then the barbel would just come in and the chub would just scatter, and they're just heads up, tail down.
Because I mean, like I say, I haven't done huge amounts of barbel fishing, but I know when it was always that, it's savoury flavours, spicy flavours, but that's quite interesting, really. Definitely.
Tinkerberry actually does very well for barbel on the Dorset Stour and the Hampshire Avon.
Somebody tipped me off on that the other week. So it's worth, like you say, once the tench season's over, for the river anglers, that's a case of stock up, because you can just keep going on the same bait. Really interesting. So we've been through the bait. Again, what era, if you could choose, would you prefer to fish in, and why?
I would have liked to have fished in the 70s. I was only a kid at the time and I knew nothing about fishing at the time, but I think that was the best time to catch carp, because it was simple, it was easy, there was no pressure, and you could do things how you wanted to do it. I say all the people like Rod Hutchinson, Chris Yates, all those, Bob Buteau, they had the best times because they could go and fish for fish that weren't pressured, and they could catch them on their own terms. I'd love to go back to that.
Definitely.
Instead of all the pressure that everybody has to catch fish at all costs and put it on Facebook, I caught this, that and that, and this bait, and they want to get sponsorships and dealerships and just from catching a few fish. It doesn't work like that. You need to put in the effort and catch hundreds of fish before you attain that sort of status.
Absolutely. It did seem, sometimes you can look back a bit misty-eyed, but I know, I was born in the late 60s, and it does seem, sort of even reading about that in the 80s and the 90s, the development of carp fishing and, that era of specimen fishing as well. And it was almost, like you say, like word of mouth, and probably, completely different era. So, I totally get that. Okay, so yeah, that kind of leads on. Would you say the advent of the internet and social media has been a positive influence on angling?
It's been a very, very positive thing, but it's also the worst thing as well because of the internet trolls that are very eager to put people down on a good capture of fish because they're obviously jealous and they haven't got the time to go out and do all the homework themselves. Getting the word about is absolutely fabulous. You can literally go online and you can find any type of rig, any type of bait, the best reels to use, the best rods to use, the best places to go and fish. Whereas in the old days, it was all secret squirrel, and occasionally you get a little snippet of something that you could use. I say it was so hard back then.
Everything
now
was
it's
hard
so,
won.
Now it's so easy.
I
say anybody can go out literally and find somewhere where they could go and catch a 30-pound carp.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So, what piece of angling advice has stood you in good stead over the years, and that you would probably offer to other anglers?
Don't follow trends.
Yeah.
When I go to a lake, everybody's chucking out 30, 35 wraps. I'm the first one to look in the margins and keep it quiet and fish close in. I don't think I fish more than 10 or 11 wraps really, unless it's required. But no, I like to keep it simple.
It's kind of hunting them out rather than
it is. If somebody says, "Oh, you never catch a fish there," don't believe them because they're just trying to put you off. So just do what you want to do.
Good sound advice. What is the funniest or most humorous experience you have had while you've been angling?
It was at Farlow's. It had been raining cats and dogs for a week, and I went down with my brother and we fished along the motorway bank, but the water had come right up to the fence. They had a fence with barbed wire all the way across it to stop the cows from coming in, because there was a little stretch of land between the M25 and there, and farmer used to let a couple of cows come along. So anyway, we're walking along there to get to the next area to go and fish, and there was literally that much ground before the water, and I didn't know how deep it was. So I grabbed hold of the fence, and I didn't know that it wasn't secured to the post, so I held onto it and I just fell backwards into the lake. There's a guy fishing over there, he just turned round and looked at me and went like that, and I just casually got up, went to my brother, borrowed his bike, and I cycled up and down the road for an hour to try and dry myself off in the wind.
So it's like the Tour de France going up and down, trying to get dry.
One of the worst things I witnessed, again on Farlow's, it was in the dead of winter. I think it was 4 days before Christmas, and I was fishing with my cousin. As you do, we had some whiskey with us and some coke, so we were knocking back a few drinks to try and keep the numbness out. And we heard these screams, and we thought it was a badger or a fox. So we thought nothing of it. In the early hours, I think it was about 3:15 in the morning, a violent shaking on the divvy, and there was flashlights everywhere, and it was police.
Good grief.
Transpired that one of the bailiffs had an altercation with a guy that it was told had been messing around with his sister or something like that.
All right.
He killed him and threw him in the canal next to Farlow's.
Good grief.
Yeah, so the police were everywhere, and it was horrible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we were literally 50 yards away from where it happened, but we didn't know. We thought it was, like I say, a badger or a fox. If we'd known it was a woman, a bloke screaming, but he sounded like a woman, then we would have gone.
Good grief. What year was that, sort of, roughly? I guess.
Well, it was when I just got onto the carpfish, so it's probably 89.
Good grief.
88, 89.
Yeah, she's still pretty young as well, So, sometimes when you're out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was blood curdling when we realised what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, just probably my final question. following on from that, if any, what other interests do you have outside of angling or other than angling?
I don't.
Yeah.
I do like rugby.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan, but if London Irish are playing, then
Yeah.
I like to see them.
Yeah.
Because I used to work near Kingston, so they were quite local. I used to go and watch them.
Yeah.
I used to watch them train.
Yeah.
I used to do shooting when I lived in Wales because I was on a farm.
Yeah.
But so that's all by the by now. But
Yeah.
I quite like clay pigeon shooting.
Yeah.
Apart from that, no, I don't have any other hobbies.
Yeah.
Obviously, I treat my daughter.
Mhm.
I spoil her rotten, so
Yeah.
that's an expensive hobby.
Yeah. Kids generally are, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you say, so like a lot of us, like you say, immersed in angling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
In one way or another. I say the baits. It keeps me very, very busy. I probably fished twice last season.
Yeah.
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 And that's going on horseshoe and
Salmon, yeah. I think the thing which probably a lot of people don't tend to realise, if you are you've got some interest or you're working within the industry, they think, oh, it must be wonderful, but you hear it so very often that has a big impact on the time that you can spend actually fishing.
Yeah, and also people don't realise that people think when they place orders with you that you're there at their discretion.
Yeah.
And you get phone calls and text messages at 10, 11 o'clock on a weekend at night,
Yeah.
expecting to answer the calls, or can you do this order for me and I need it on Monday?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that on a Saturday?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I suppose it boils down to, I've often said it as well, working in my profession, and so could you walk into and see your bank manager on that particular day, or your doctor? But so sometimes that's the almost like the travails of being a self-employed sort of and having your own business.
I wouldn't change it though.
No.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, and I'll carry on doing it until I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. So, well, that's basically brought us to the end of the questions. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
You are our first, we can call them friends or sponsors or people who support the group, which you really do, and you do it so well. And as I say, I was so keen for you to be the first one to do
Thank you
this.
very
So,
much. Thank you,
Darren,
Mark.
thank you very much, and we'll
Lovely.
go and have a few more beers tonight.
Oh,
Stone
definitely.
Stratford.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Take it easy.
Cheers.